And it ended up being one of the most enjoyable relationships I've ever had.
I saw her on a TV show, and I had never seen her before, and I said, that's it. Whoever she is, I'm going to go with it. I'm going to take a chance.
There are movie stars, and then there are legends. Robert Redford wasn't just a Hollywood heartthrob. He was the man. The kind of man every woman dreamed about and every man secretly wanted to be. But behind that golden smile and the cool swagger of the Sundance Kid lived someone haunted by love. Love found, love lost, and love he could never truly let go of. Now, at 89, Redford has finally opened up about the 6 women who shaped his soul. The first wife who believed in him before the fame, the Hollywood goddess who slipped away too soon, the fiery romance he couldn't control, the close friend who almost became something more, and the one woman who finally calmed his restless heart. These aren't cheap gossip stories. They're the quiet, hidden truths behind the man the world thought it knew. Because Robert Redford's greatest love stories were never captured on film. Number 1, Lola Van Wagenen, the first love who never left his soul. Before the awards, the magazine covers, and the world knowing his name, there was Lola Van Wagenen. She wasn't a movie star or an ambitious actress. She was a historian, smart, grounded, and living far away from Hollywood's glare. And that's exactly what Redford needed back then. Someone real, someone steady, someone who saw him not as a legend, but just as Bob. They married in 1958 when Redford was still just another young man chasing big dreams. The world hadn't discovered him yet, but Lola did. She believed in him when no one else even cared to look. Together, they built a home, raised 4 children, and tried to hold on to something normal, even as fame came knocking harder every day. But the same success Redford had worked so hard for eventually became the storm that ripped through their marriage. Hollywood doesn't forgive distance, and his career demanded it constantly. The endless nights, the travel, the weight of being in demand, it all left cracks that time couldn't fix. By 1985, after nearly 3 decades, they quietly ended their marriage. No tabloids, no messy public fights, just 2 people who realized love sometimes changes in ways you can't stop. Yet, even after it was over, Lola never truly left his heart. In later interviews, Redford spoke of her with deep respect, sometimes with that quiet sadness that slips through when you talk about someone who still means something. It was clear. Lola wasn't just his first wife. She was the anchor that kept him grounded during the years when fame could have easily swallowed him whole. And anchors, even when released, always leave their mark on the soul. Number 2, Natalie Wood. The star-crossed spark that burned bright in the golden haze of 1960s. Hollywood. This was the era when studios ruled everything and the paparazzi swarmed like hungry moths to light. Somewhere in that whirlwind, Redford crossed paths with a woman whose beauty seemed almost unreal, Natalie Wood. By that time, Natalie was already Hollywood royalty. She'd grown up in front of the camera, turning from a child star into one of the most captivating leading ladies of her generation. To Redford, still climbing his way up, she was both a colleague and a mystery, the kind of woman you couldn't quite figure out, but couldn't look away from either. They worked together on several films, most famously Inside Daisy Clover, 1965, and This Property is Condemned, 1966. On screen, their chemistry was electric, the kind that made audiences wonder if something real was happening behind the scenes, and maybe, just maybe, it was. On screen, their chemistry was electric. Redford played the charming drifter, cool, untouchable, while Natalie was the fragile dreamer chasing something real. Together, they captured the restless spirit of a generation that refused to settle down. But behind the camera, whispers started to spread, people saying there was something deeper between them, something they tried to keep hidden. For Natalie, who had spent her whole life under Hollywood's harsh lights, Redford was a breath of fresh air. He wasn't hungry for attention, didn't crave the headlines. He was private, grounded, and real. To Redford, Natalie wasn't just another co-star. She was a mystery. She shined bright, but behind that glow lived a storm. Friends later said Redford cared deeply for her, but he also knew the chaos that followed her everywhere she went. He understood the pressure, the heartbreak, the loneliness that fame could bring, maybe because he was starting to feel it too. Whatever existed between them, whether it was a quiet romance or just an unspoken connection, it stayed with him. Natalie's tragic death in 1981 hit Redford hard. It reminded him that even the brightest lights in Hollywood could fade too soon. He rarely talked about her, but when he did, his voice softened, like he was guarding something sacred. You could hear the care, the sadness, the respect. It was as if speaking about her too much might shatter the memory itself. Natalie Wood might not have been his forever love, but she was a spark that burned deep, a flash of something real in a world built on make-believe. Fleeting, fragile, and unforgettable. Number 3, Barbra Streisand, a clash of fire and ice. If Natalie was a spark, Barbra was a wildfire. When Redford and Streisand came together for The Way We Were in 1973, both were already icons, but neither could have imagined the explosion that movie would create. Their chemistry lit up the screen and the world went crazy for it. This wasn't just a love story. It was a war between passion and restraint, between politics and emotion, between two souls heading in opposite directions. Barbra, with her fierce energy and unstoppable drive, lived every moment like it was her last. She poured her heart into every scene, eyes blazing with emotion, voice trembling with truth. Redford was the opposite, calm, controlled, the definition of cool. He played his role like a man holding back 1,000 feelings, and that tension made every moment between them burn hotter. Off-screen, their connection was just as intense, but complicated. Years later, Streisand openly admitted she was captivated by him, describing Redford as the golden boy. For her, he was everything Hollywood promised but rarely delivered. But Redford, ever private, kept his walls high. He admired her, respected her, but her boldness, her need to dive deep, sometimes overwhelmed him. He wasn't one to wear his emotions on his sleeve. Where Barbra wanted raw connection, Redford needed space, quiet, control. It was a dance, passion pulling one way, fear pulling the other. And maybe that's exactly why their movie worked, because it wasn't acting. The audience could feel it. That mix of longing and restraint was real. The ending of The Way We Were, where love fades under the weight of time and destiny, mirrored what was happening between them off camera. Barbra once hinted that he may have been the one who slipped away, and maybe she was right. Because for Redford, even if she wasn't the love he held on to, Streisand would always be the one who stayed in the story. Number 4, Sonia Braga. The passion that almost consumed him. By the late 1980s, Robert Redford wasn't just a star anymore, he was a powerhouse. Actor, director, producer, the man could build entire worlds on screen. But then came Sonia Braga, the Brazilian actress whose energy could light up an entire city. She wasn't just beautiful, she was bold, fierce, and untamed. Known worldwide for her fearless roles in Dona Flor and Her Two Husbands and Kiss of the Spider Woman, Braga radiated intensity. She was all heat and heart, passion that burned without apology. For Redford, who had spent most of his life keeping emotions under lock and key, she was a shock to his system, a storm he couldn't ignore. Their connection wasn't just about chemistry, as it was deeper, cultural, emotional, even spiritual. She brought the fire and rhythm of Latin America. He brought the quiet control of California and Utah. She lived life raw and real, never holding back, and that both fascinated and unsettled him. Friends close to Redford back then described their bond as consuming, even volatile. Lola Van Wagenen had grounded him. Barbra Streisand had challenged him, but Sonia Braga, she swept him away. For the first time, Redford wasn't standing calm in the storm. He was the storm. But that kind of passion doesn't last forever. It burns too hot. Redford craved balance, peace, something steady. Braga, on the other hand, thrived in chaos, in emotion, in the thrill of unpredictability. Their worlds clashed beautifully, but balance was impossible. Their romance didn't last long, but it branded itself onto his soul. Years later, Redford spoke of her with deep admiration, calling her a force of nature. That says it all. She wasn't the woman he built a home with, but she was the flame he could never fully extinguish. The living reminder that even the most controlled man can lose himself in the fire of passion. Number 5, Sibylle Szaggars, the woman who finally tamed his heart. By the time Redford met Sibylle, he had already lived several lifetimes. He'd been the golden boy of Hollywood, the filmmaker who changed the game, the activist who stood up to the system. He'd seen it all, the fame, the heartbreak, the loneliness that comes when the spotlight fades. And then, just when no one expected it, love found him again. Sibylle wasn't an actress or part of the Hollywood machine. She was an artist, a painter born in Germany, whose work pulsed with the colors of nature, the very essence of what had always kept Redford grounded. They met in the 1990s, a time when Redford had pulled back from fame, retreating to the peace of Sundance, Utah. Sybille's calm spirit and creative energy matched that rhythm perfectly. She didn't crave attention or headlines. She found beauty in silence, in stillness, in the world beyond the noise. Their love didn't grow under bright lights or at movie premieres. It grew in the quiet, in the mountains, the forests, the spaces where they could just be, away from cameras, away from chaos. After more than a decade together, they made it official in 2009, marrying in a private ceremony in Hamburg, Germany. No flashing cameras, no media circus, just love, simple and true. Sibylle became not just his partner, but his peace, the calm after decades of storms. For Redford, Sibylle was something rare, peace. She was the calm after decades of storms, the one who could sit beside him in silence and somehow make that silence feel alive. After years of chasing passion, heartbreak, and fame, she gave him something he never thought he'd find: stillness. At 89, when Redford looks back on his life, it's clear. Sibylle isn't just another chapter. She's the closing act. The woman who walked beside him into twilight with grace. If passion once set his world on fire, she offered the cool water that soothed the flames. And sometimes, peace, quiet, steady peace, is the greatest kind of love there is. Number 6, Jane Fonda, the bond that never quite became love. Few pairings in Hollywood ever felt as natural as Robert Redford and Jane Fonda. From the moment they appeared together in Barefoot in the Park, 1967, audiences were hooked. Their chemistry was so effortless, so playful, it made people believe they were soulmates both on and off the screen. Years later, when they reunited in The Electric Horseman, 1979, and again in Our Souls at Night, 2017, that same spark came roaring back. Older, wiser, but still undeniable. Watching them together felt timeless, like no years had passed at all. But behind all that laughter and closeness, something fascinating lingered. They were never actually lovers. What they shared wasn't romance, but something deeper, a connection that danced near love, but never stepped across the line. Redford admired Jane's courage, her bold voice in politics, her refusal to stay quiet in an industry that often wanted her to. She was fearless, driven, impossible to ignore. Jane, on her end, never hid her affection for him. She once admitted she sometimes wished they had been more than just co-stars. But timing is everything, and theirs was never right. Redford was guarded, a man who protected his private world fiercely, while Fonda lived loud and unapologetically in the spotlight. Maybe he feared that love would ruin the trust they'd built, or maybe he just knew that some connections are too pure to risk. Still, when they came together again late in life for Our Souls at Night, it felt like destiny circling back. They played two widowed neighbors finding love in old age, but for audiences, it felt like watching something real unfold. It was as if the story on screen gave us a glimpse of what might have been, a love always just out of reach. Jane Fonda wasn't a lost love, but she was a reminder of one, proof that not all love stories are meant to be lived. Some are meant to be felt, quietly, forever. The loves that shaped a legend. Robert Redford's life may have looked golden to the world, a reel of triumphs, beauty, and fame. But behind the legend was a man molded by both love and loss. From Lola Van Wagenen, the woman who gave him family, to Natalie Wood, whose fragility haunted him. From Barbra Streisand's fire to Sonia Braga's consuming passion. From Sibylle Szaggars, who gave him peace, to Jane Fonda, the friend who might have been more. Each woman left her mark. Each carved her story into his. At 89, Redford's true legacy isn't just his films, it's the loves, heartbreaks, and unforgettable women who made him human. Which of these stories hit your heart the most? Behind the charm, the fame, and the golden glow of Robert Redford's life lies a truth most never see. The man was never chasing stardom, he was chasing meaning. He wasn't obsessed with applause. He wanted purpose, every success, every heartbreak, every love. It all shaped him into someone who valued silence more than spotlight. People always saw the legend, the Sundance Kid, the Hollywood Golden Boy. But behind closed doors, Redford was quiet, almost guarded. Fame didn't excite him. It drained him. He once said that the higher you climb, the lonelier the air gets. And he lived that truth. The red carpets, the flashing lights, they weren't his world. His world was nature, family, and the art of storytelling that actually said something. By the 1990s, Redford had turned from movie star to mentor, the man who gave other dreamers a shot. He founded the Sundance Institute, a place where voices outside Hollywood's system could finally be heard. He wasn't just building films, he was building a movement. Independent artists, new directors, storytellers with grit. They all found their path because of him. But while he built that legacy, the emotional weight of his past never disappeared. Friends close to him said he often reflected on the people who shaped him. Not just the women who loved him, but the losses that scarred him too. He lost a child early in his life, a pain that stayed with him for decades. Maybe that's why Redford carried a quiet sadness, even in his happiest moments. The kind of sadness that makes a person appreciate calm, because they've already survived the chaos. Even in his later years, that balance between light and shadow defined him. On one hand, the silver-haired icon who'd lived a dream most could never imagine. On the other, a man still humbled by time, by loss, by love that didn't last but never really left. He once said he didn't believe in looking back too much, but when he did it with gratitude, not regret. By his late 80s, the Hollywood world had changed, but Redford's influence never faded. Younger stars called him the real deal, and directors described him as the kind of artist who never lost his soul. Even after decades in an industry that chews people up, Redford stayed true. No scandals, no explosions, just honesty and craft. He became the quiet rebel, the man who played by his own rules and somehow won, not by chasing attention, but by creating meaning in everything he touched. His story isn't just about fame or romance. It's about endurance. It's about the kind of life that burns bright but doesn't lose itself in the fire. And then there's the love that stayed, Sibylle. She became his balance, his home base. Together, they built a world that existed far away from Hollywood's noise. Friends say that when you see them together, it's calm. No drama, no games, just two people who understand the value of peace. For a man who lived through so much, that might be the greatest ending of all. But here's the thing. Robert Redford never really cared for endings. He always believed stories go on, even after the screen fades to black. His story continues through his films, through Sundance, through every artist who dared to believe in something real. Now at 89, when he smiles, that same legendary smile that once broke hearts around the world, you can still see all of it. The boy from California who dreamed big, the husband who loved deeply, the friend who stayed loyal, the artist who never gave up. He's proof that fame fades, but legacy, real legacy, doesn't. Because Robert Redford didn't just play heroes on screen, he lived like one off it. So maybe that's the secret behind the legend. He wasn't trying to be larger than life. He was just trying to live it, honestly, completely, and without fear. And that's why, even now, long after the credits roll, his story still shines. Which love or moment hit you the hardest? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, hit that like button if you felt something real, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that go beyond the spotlight.